So I want you to respond to that. She's saying she's not sure that this charter can get, or that the municipal code can get cleaned up before this recall goes forward. Is that true?
Well, anybody can file lawsuits, but I think we can. I know we can clean it up through the interpretation. And the first issue is easy; it's unconstitutional. They can go to court all they want. There's already been a legal determination. The second one is interpretation, and we're very confident in that. But anytime you have to interpret it, an ambiguous provision, there's always the potential for lawsuits. We're confident in our interpretation. The third is going to be more difficult and may require some council action, and we'll have to deal with the issue Toni dealt with as to whether it's retroactive or not. We haven't gotten there yet. As far as Charter Section 40, when the strong mayor form of government was adopted, there's a provision that says this doesn't affect the role of the city attorney. It remains, as in Charter Section 40, as the city attorney for the city. But I do agree with Toni that we need to look at it and see, is it working? And maybe there's some ways we can do better. I think everything should be on the table.
So there's 2 votes against strong mayor. Are you a third?
I'm not at this time. I didn't support strong mayor the first or the second time it was on your ballot. I remember campaigning against it, I think with Lorena at a few phone banks together. That was fun. And we weren't successful. We raised some of the issues that we're seeing now. I think, but what I said before a few moments ago is still true. I don't think we should reorder our whole government because we got a lemon in the last election. We should fix the things that need fixing. But I'm concerned about making sure that the second that we start to have a progressive majority in the city, that we now suddenly, the forces that brought forward the strong mayor form of government now want to undo it. Listen, we should do the very best we can to give you the best city government possible. I know we're not doing that with the mayor that we have now. Once that is dealt with, we can look at this through a comprehensive approach, and Toni Atkins is exactly right. There are many other flaws in the charter that need looking at. But again, let's not upend our whole city government because Bob Faulconer is a bad mayor. We can do better than we're doing, but I don't think we should make that public.
Okay, so 2 no. How about you?
Strong supporter of this form of government, strong mayor. But remember, it's a strong mayor, strong council form of government. And the council has its role, and it's very important that we play that role, particularly now. But remember in the old days when we had an unelected city bureaucrat, the manager that was making day-to-day decisions for the city. Now we have, of course, that's where we are right now. But now we have, whoever he or she is our mayor. You know who to hold accountable. You know who to, for the department heads, for our budget, and then the council has our role to weigh in to say whether we like it or not. But in the old days, all of those decisions being made by the city manager was not accountable to us, which is why you know who to hold responsible. Because in the old days, you remember the arguments the council used to have, well, I wanted this, but the manager didn't want it. No, whoever's elected mayor, whoever he or she is, you have that responsibility and authority along with the council. That is a vastly better system than we used to have before in the city of San Diego.
Wait, let me follow up real quick with Kevin. Okay, go ahead.
Just one thought. If we're going to continue with a half-an-hour discussion on strong mayor and the city charter, maybe we should move the beer garden over here because I think we're going to start losing people. Just a consideration.
Dave Rowland likes that.
I like the strong mayor government or that discussion, but I understand. You threw me off, Lorena. Okay, well, how do we support some of the major projects? And maybe I'll start with you, Mark Kersey. What is the next big thing that the mayor, that the leader of the city needs to deal with, and what's standing in the way of that?
This is a trick, right? I mean, the answer is infrastructure. I mean, as it always is. No, I mean, seriously, infrastructure is the next great crisis.
What do you mean by infrastructure? We're a bunch of nerds, but let's hear it. So.
Okay, well, again, when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about over $1 billion that should have been spent in the past that has not been spent on our streets and our roads, our sidewalks, our libraries, our fire stations, our parks, water mains, storm drains, things above the ground, things below the ground. Everything that the city owns, maintains, that you enjoy or you need is what I'm talking about when I talk about infrastructure. And we have historically done a very bad job when it comes to infrastructure. The problem right now is that we don't have a mayor who's focused on it because he's distracted. The good news is we do have Walt Eckerd, but I don't know what he can actually get done because he's in charge of running the bureaucracy rather than setting the policy. Getting back to the strong mayor thing, I think neither system is perfect, and they're entirely dependent upon the people who are actually in there, right? If you don't have a good city manager, you're not going to like that form of government. If you don't have a good, strong mayor, you're not going to like that one, and the other one's always going to look better. So you just need to have good people in there is what it boils down to. And when it comes to infrastructure, we need everybody focused on this because it really is the next and really the current big crisis that we're facing.
Do you agree, Lorena?
We moved from strong government to infrastructure. Now we need the whole beer garden over here. I would agree with this. Infrastructure is a crisis, but this is what I liked about the progressive agenda that was being set in the city and why we need Bob Filner to go and to elect another progressive. It's not just infrastructure. I don't want to hear about streets and potholes. When you live in the communities that I live in, where the inequities in infrastructure funding have been so extreme over the last 40, 50 years, that when people are talking about getting their sidewalk and there are no sidewalks and there are no street lamps, and we deal with this every single day south of the 8, that if we're going to talk about infrastructure, let's put it in a spectrum. The one that had started, I think, under this mayor, and hopefully will continue, that talks about equity. We're not at the same starting point. We need to invest in our south of 8 communities. That's what we were looking forward to, and I want to make sure we continue to do that with whoever becomes mayor.
And I would just say I agree. I mean, we do have inequities when it comes to our infrastructure investment historically. There's no question about it.
Describe one.
Well, I mean, when you look at, for example, my district, which is mostly newer communities, right? I mean, pretty much every neighborhood in my district is from the mid-'60s on. We did a different model of financing these things, right? So nowadays, developers basically pay for for all the infrastructure. I mean, generally it's passed down obviously to the homeowners, but that infrastructure is put in right away. In the city's older neighborhoods, we didn't have that model. So at some point, the city built it, nobody maintained it, and then that's where we are right now. There's no question that we have inequities. The good news is that 2 of the 4 members of the infrastructure committee are from districts south of the 8, so they get that, and they're very, very focused on how we move this forward. As am I, because this is not a partisan issue. It's not an issue that really should divide anybody. I mean, this north of 8, south of 8 thing. I think we talk about it a lot, but I mean, this is an issue that we should all be focused on because it impacts the whole city.
We need to wrap this up. I'm going to just ask each of you to talk about what is directly next. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think one of the biggest, I think there's multiple priorities. I'm so thrilled to see an infrastructure person on the council who is focused totally on that. I know the council as a whole does, but it's what I spent 8 years doing as a city council member in District 3. But I think it's two-pronged. We've got to look at our neighborhoods and how we support and protect our neighborhoods, but we've got to look at the economic engine for the city. And I think it was referenced earlier, the expansion of the convention center is critically important because that is what generates the revenue to provide the services. We can put infrastructure in place. We can build fire stations and do a bond to do that, but then we have to staff those fire stations so that you get better response times. So we've got to focus on the big, and we've got to focus on the specific within the communities. And so I believe the convention center, what we do with the TMD, the Tourist Marketing District, how we resolve those issues to move forward. And what is that going to really take? What is it going to take to get us there? It's going to take active engagement and listening by the city leaders. It's going to take the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and in the absence of a mayor who has not yet stepped down, it's really going to take the interim COO to implement this stuff. It's not ideal, but that's what we have to do, and we have to listen actively. We have to engage. We have to bring our business community in, our civic leaders, our community leaders, and realize we can do this if we need to. We can step up. We've done it before. When the stakes are really high, San Diegans and leaders step up. That's why you have us here today. We're each prepared to step up in some way and to try to get us through this crisis from whatever seat we sit in. And I think that, the active participation, listening, and engagement by all parties is what we're going to need. And I think that we can do that as San Diegans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toni. I think that's a great answer. I would say, first and foremost, if you have not spoken out and called for the mayor to resign, you need to do so. This is not the time to sit on your hands and to hope that this goes away. Every San Diegan has to demand more from our mayor's office. They will not get it with this gentleman in office. He's got to go. So if you haven't spoken out, if you're an elected official, if you're an organization, if you're organized labor, you've got to say, you've got to leave, Mr. Mayor, for the best of our city. Go now. That's job number one. Once that happens, to your point, Mark, we have to go on with the business of the city. That's maintaining the fiscal discipline that has gotten us to the point where we can start talking about infrastructure. And just for the record, the first thing I did as council president was create the infrastructure committee. And then second thing was put Mark Kersey in charge of it. That was a pretty good decision, right? But let me tell you, with Bill Fulton here working on our neighborhoods, with some of the stuff that Mark's committee's doing, we are in the point where I think we can actually make real progress on our neighborhoods and our infrastructure the way that we've done on our financial issues. But we can't do it with this mayor. We can't do it with a city council that spends 2 hours talking about sexual harassment in closed session. That's time spent not talking about potholes or sidewalks, public safety, the things that you care about. So let's get the mayor to resign, and let's get back to the people's business. We are America's finest city. We will be when this nightmare's over.
I have to ask, though, if he doesn't resign, would you support a recall?
It's not the ideal. I want to be really clear. Resignation is a faster, I think less expensive and more certain way to end this nightmare. But if push comes to shove, I would vote for a recall. Absolutely.
Jim?
Yeah, I've already addressed that the next thing we have to do is we're dealing with a lot of litigation, a lot of legal issues. But I want to respond to Scott's earlier question about, well, if the city's working, what's the problem? And I think it's a good question that we really haven't answered. Let me tell you that the city is working on a day-to-day basis because Walt Eckert is a great manager, and we appreciate him being there. Our lawyers are being consulted for the first time in 8 months. We are involved in issues with Walt, and we're helping, and we work together very, very well. However, the problem is Walt is not a decision maker. So when we have a contract that our lawyers are negotiating and there's holes in the contract on what should we put here, what should we put there, he knows he has to go to the mayor and ask for direction, and there's dysfunction there. When we're negotiate litigation, I see Corey Briggs here. Corey, we have a lot of litigation with him. We have litigation with your brother, with a lot of other people. There a lot of everybody. But what we do is we work with the administration. We're just not loose cannons as far as lawyers. We don't make settlement proposals. We work with the administration. And Walt doesn't give us that direction. Risk management can't really give us that direction. It comes from the mayor's office a lot of times. And so there's a big hole there. That becomes a standstill. So even though we're being consulted and things are happening on a day-to-day basis, Walt's not getting that input. The directors of the departments are not getting that input from the mayors. They throw up their hands when our lawyers have a question, and they say, well, we don't know. We haven't heard anything. Well, where's the mayor? Well, we don't know. And so that's where the crisis is. And the dysfunction of the city has gotten even worse. It's not just about relationships between the city council and the mayor and the city attorney and the mayor. It's about our fundamental decisions being made, and if so, are they being communicated? That's how.
I want to point something out. That I think people need to understand. There's all this call, who's called on him to resign and pointing fingers, and it feels a little political and McCarthy-esque. You know, you must be with him because you haven't said you're against him, and that stuff has to end, you guys, really. What is important here that you realize, especially among those of us who did help get him elected. I'll tell you this, for the first time in history, we spent 2 years going south of the 8, talking to voters about how their lives could change because of municipal government, how they could take a hold of their future, how they could get rid of those inequities that we've seen for decades, how we could empower ourselves to have a mayor who cared about people, who wanted to create jobs, and not just any job, but a good self-sustaining job where you can put food on your table and have some dignity and respect. And we had a majority of those folks determine this election, and it was a beautiful and powerful thing, and it is disgusting and overwhelmingly sad that he has done this to those communities, all right? And I am mad, and there are a lot of people like me who are angry about it, but that doesn't mean that those ideas are wrong, and we need to encourage, and it's good for the entire city when we're not broken up by one highway, and we are now. And anyone who doesn't believe it should come down to my district and talk to those voters, because they look substantially different than the folks who are here today. And they're working hard to just get the very basics, and they know for once, city government, if it operates correctly, can change their lives. And we're angry, and he should resign. And we should push every mechanism possible. I think the good thing about a recall is maybe that pushes him to resign. Or legal action, maybe that pushes him to resign. But we need to ensure that this isn't just some political ploy where people are pointing out who has or hasn't called on him to resign. What this is about is how we move forward with the same agenda, a beautiful agenda that we empowered people in this city finally take hold of their lives and they can continue to do so. That's what I hope we do in the future.
Thank you, Scott. Where do we go from here? We focus on the basics of getting the job done. We do focus on streets. We do focus on doing the things that the mayor ignored in his budget, where we're not doing our infrastructure and 80 miles of streets are not getting done because of that. We do focus on public safety, particularly our police department, our recruitment and our retention. We're losing officers at an alarming rate. They're getting hired by other municipalities. We need to do every we can to retain them and to attract them. That is one of the key things that we all need to be working on immediately. I was proud to help work with that, not only on a 5-year labor agreement, but most recently as we're working on recruitment and retention for our men and women of the San Diego Police Department. And lastly, what we work on services, which is why I feel so committed to not going back on the reform efforts that you passed with managed competition to make sure we're getting value for our dollars and our city services. Because every dollar that we save at City Hall, ladies and gentlemen, is a dollar that we can reinvest back into neighborhood services. That is a critical thing that this city must continue to move forward. This mayor has ignored that. That's an agenda that is wrong for this city. Let me just say, Scott, in conclusion, we have a lot of pride of who we are in San Diego, a lot of pride in our families. We're coming together, all of us, as Republicans, Democrats, Klein Estates, Independents. We are better as San Diegans than Bob Filner, and we will show that in the coming weeks and months.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I can tell you where I go from here, and that's to put a certain 7-year-old who kind of looks like me into timeout if he doesn't shape up his act over there. You hear me, Tyler? Yeah, I'm talking to you. Well, I think it's pretty clear where we go from here. Bob's out of town for a couple weeks, so we obviously got to change the locks and make sure his ticket was one way. And beyond that, look, everybody up here has said exactly the right things. We've got a lot of dedicated public servants throughout the city. We got a lot of people in our city who are working hard every day to make this place a great place to live and work and play. You keep doing your jobs, we'll keep doing our jobs.
Okay. Before I let them go, I want to make a couple of announcements. Please, Voice of San Diego is a service that requires the community to fund it. Please visit our tent, sign up for the morning report if you don't get it. Sign up. You may not agree with us all the time, but we're trying to provide a service that includes things like this and events. I want to highlight 2 staff members. Summer Polachek, is Summer around? Summer, this is her last day of work with us. Summer right there. She's got that wig. She helped make this all possible in a way that's really powerful. Thank you, Summer. And Zach Warma. Zach's around here somewhere. There he is. Zach also put this together. Thank you, Zach. Please visit our tent. Sign up for the morning report if you don't get it. The Greater Logan Heights folks are here. They asked me to give a special request. Go visit the Greater Logan Heights tent right there. Great group. South of the 8 is underrepresented at some of these things, and I'm really proud that they're here. We have neighborhoods here, all represented. Claremont, Greater Logan Heights, all kinds of places. So please visit the booths, and let's hear it for our electeds that were up here. Thank you for joining us.